in my phone.
Court is in session with Ryan in Sacktown on If You Don't Like That. Now, Ryan in Sacktown.
Oh, must be Rhino.
Wow. That's all I have to say right now. It is a morning edition of the King's Court. We're going to have back-to-back press conferences. The first just completed with Monte McNair, and I apologize for being about 45 seconds late. You'll have to excuse me. I was picking my jaw up off of the floor. I've got my instant thoughts to it. We're going to listen to parts of it again. More importantly, I want to get your thoughts on this. We're also going to carry the Zack LaVine press conference that's going to be starting at 12 o'clock. Let me know what you thought about what you heard from Monte McNair. And I've got to start off, by the way, by giving the Sacramento media some credit. The credentialed media, they brought it today. They absolutely brought it. I told you it would not be pretty. It would be more direct. Why did you not address this after the firing? Why did you hang players out to dry? How about the De'Aaron Fox information that Monte said? There's so many things that you can draw from that. We offered him 2 extensions, so it was pretty clear it was not going to work out. So does that mean De'Aaron was on the market before the season started? I am so utterly dumbfounded. And now my dog is barking because we don't usually do morning shows. The gardeners are in the house. So let's get to it. On the other side, court is in session. On If You Don't Like That.
Grant and Ryan, break it down. It's Sacktown, we're the crown.
Needs to be more aggressive on the offensive end, but this is the
Williams, the D-line.
And welcome back in. Ryan in Sacktown with you, taking you up to the Zack LaVine press conference. Grant and Sean, 3 o'clock today, talking NFL football, talking Super Bowl week. Make sure you come back from that. We got full coverage tonight of the Kings and the Magic as well. So you know it is going to be an extremely busy day here on If You Don't Like That. Again, I would love to hear from you right off the top. Start calling the show. Put your comments in the chat. We will get to as many as we can. We're going to recap the press conference that just ended about 10 minutes ago with Monte McNair. You can use the link circulating in the chat if you would like to. You can also call the show 916-822-9485. My initial thoughts?
Is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points.
Unbelievable. Dare I say that Monte was combative? Sure came off that way. I don't want to say checked out, but that was a very bizarre press conference. He was asked a couple times directly, and he completely completely ducked the questions about why this organization did not have a press conference. We wanted to focus on what we needed to do on the court. I'm pretty sure that's a given when you've lost 5 games in a row at home and you have a situation like you did with De'Aaron Fox at the end of the game and his comments at the podium. This is, look, if I'm a Sacramento Kings fan, I am not happy. I am a Kings fan. Now, I put my job first, my objectivity. I leave the bias on the side. Y'all deserve better than what you got from Monte McNair. You all deserve way better than what you heard. If you did not hear the press conference, we're going to play a couple snippets of it. Also, we're going to get to phone calls here in a second. This was the start of the press conference that just wrapped up about 10 minutes ago.
Ready, Shem? All right. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming. Obviously, busy week. Obviously, we still have some work to do, but I want to thank Wes, Phil, Paul, our front office for all the work to get us here to this point. Obviously, want to start by thanking De'Aaron, Kevin, and Jordan for their contributions to us. We all know what De'Aaron's meant to this franchise for the last 7-8 years. Some incredible moments. Kevin, obviously, also a part of the original Beam team and breaking the playoff drought. So wish them the best. Jordan, his time here a little shorter, but great to get to know him. He's going to have a bright future in this league as well. So thank you to them. On the flip side, we're excited to welcome Zach and Ceedee here. I think Zach's, time in the league speaks for itself. Multi-time All-Star, just an incredible talent, shot making, athleticism, and somebody who, puts his stamp on the court. So we're excited. We'll obviously talk more about Zach later today, I'm sure. So I think that's it for my intro. So let's go.
Yeah, Monte, it's been 40 plus days since Mike Brown was fired, and this is the first time we're getting to talk to you. What went into the decision to not hold a press conference before today, and sort of even that playing into one of the reasons why De'Aaron Fox was uncomfortable moving forward because he felt he was left out in front of to answer some of the media questions?
Yeah, so I'd say at the time, obviously we were struggling as a team. Mike's done some incredible things for this organization, and we all saw what he did the past 2+ years for us. So I have nothing bad to say about Mike. I don't want to come up here and do that. I respect everything he's done. At the same time, we're trying to turn our season around. We're a month out from the trade deadline, and we've got to figure out now with an interim coach how we're going to go turn this thing around. That was the primary focus. I knew I'd come up here and speak to you guys at some point, but that was, it was all hands on deck for that. And so far we've gotten ourselves back into the mix. So, I think we obviously have some more work to do there. On De'Aaron, I think incredible player. At the same time, we've offered multiple extensions. That's been public. In addition to public and private conversations that happened before that decision on the coaching change. So, I think, I'll speak more on that, but, for us, it became clear that there was no pathway there for a long-term agreement. And so that's also why we're here today.
Monte, I would just like to, say this. I asked this question, because yes, it's been way out since December 28th, since we spoke. Since the firing of Mike Brown, there were many of us who was in that gym, spoke to him. And then the next thing you know, he's going to the airport. He gets a message that he's been he's separated, from this organization. As far as full respect, due respect, why did it take so long for you to come out and just say, hey, this is what we did and this is why we did it and we're moving on. Why did it take that long?
Yeah, I think as I just answered there, we were focused on the team at that point and turning the season around. And, that was at that time, that was what we were focused on.
You've got to be kidding me. You all deserve so much better than that. Why hold this press conference? The only reason they held this press conference was to let the media talk. That's all it was. This was an opportunity for the media to ask the questions they've been wanting to ask, and there was no expectation from your Sacramento Kings to give any candid, honest answers. Period. End of story. I mean, maybe you got a little bit of candidness about De'Aaron Fox. Maybe we learned a thing or two there. Yes, we learned that Monte said, and we're going to get to it here in a little bit, that it was his decision to fire Mike Brown. I believe I heard that right. We'll listen to it in a second. First, let's go to Andy. Andy, what's up today?
Rhino, man, I just want to say the Sacramento media, shout out to them because they did not hold back whatsoever. I
They
don't
did
think,
not.
and as they shouldn't have, I was really happy to hear like they truly asked him all of the hard questions. Like if I was there and I wanted to ask him a question, it's almost like they did it for me. There also wasn't like a single cupcake question about, how are you feeling about the season and what are you looking forward to these upcoming games with Zach, or it was all just pretty much holding him accountable. And like you mentioned, he was very defensive, combative with a lot of his answers. Even in the second one that you just played, he responds with, oh, as I just answered, you know. And I think it's the biggest load of crap that he says, well, the reason it took so long to come out and speak to you guys is because we were focused on winning at the time. And I'm just thinking in my head, well, can you not be focused on winning and do a 10-minute press conference out of respect for your coach, or your ex-coach rather, out of respect for the players? That way they're not taking the heat, and like out of respect for the fans. Like
Amen.
you you left so many fans in the dark. Like, okay, we're losing a couple games, but our coach did just win Coach of the Year, and he just got an extension. Like, what's going on? And he just like totally blew everybody off for a month and a half. And it's like he had to have seen this coming, right?
Well, yeah, this is literally what it was. You just nailed it, and it's what I said before. They had no intention, the way that it comes off to me, zero intention to give you any answers, any accountability. Zero. It was just to let the media tee off. It was a driving range for the media. And Monty had to sit there and take it. And I think the fans, I think all of you, the city deserves better than that. Period. End of story. To me, that felt like a guy on his way out. Let me ask you this, Andy. Are you encouraged about the next 24 hours before the trade deadline
Well,
after
no,
hearing that?
that's one of the other things I was going to get to. I don't know who asked it specifically, but they pretty much said, like, so in the beginning of the year, you said the length guys on our team are McDaniels and Alex Len. McDaniels didn't make the team. Alex Len has been getting mostly DNPs. Like, do you still plan to uh, work on the team and like build on those weak points and try to like, fix it? And his answer is just so subtle. It's, like, yeah, that's something we're looking into. And then there was a follow-up question, and they said, well, how is the team gonna do? Like Zach LaVine's gonna have the same issue that Fox had with, the length and the athleticism that you guys are lacking. Or is that something you expect to work on by tomorrow? And he said the same thing. He's just, yeah, that's something we'll look into. Like, to me, that's no. That's a nice way of saying no. We're done making moves. Like I don't have any other tricks up my sleeve.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. Why, if you've waited, I guess, and obviously it's right in front of us. They don't want these because these are the questions that you would have got at Zack LaVine's introductory press conference. I guarantee you the media would have teed off with those questions instead of it being a celebration. And, Zack, how excited are you to be reunited with DeMar? We've all seen their conversation already when Zack was taking his photos when he got to town. All that stuff. Zack, what do you see? What can you bring to this team? What's your relationship like now playing for Doug, having known him dating back to both of you being in Seattle or from Seattle? It would have been none of that. And so I am really interested now to see how the media handles this at 12 p.m. when Zack LaVine comes in. In fact, if you listen to the end of the press conference, there is an audible somebody in the media going, wow.
Yeah, I think honestly, I wouldn't be surprised I hope out of respect for Zach LaVine, they don't tee off as hard because like what an awkward press conference that would be, right? But
yeah, they won't because it's such a that's the thing. There's a delicate balance with having your credential. There's a reason only certain people have their credentials. They're tied usually to an outlet, number one. Number two, you really don't and that's what's so different about this press conference, especially that second question. And he even follows up with Monte. He kind of comes right back at him, and we'll hear it in a second. So that was unique that they didn't hold back. They were very direct today, but you have to, it's almost like an attorney in court. You can't go directly to what you want to ask. You have to build it up with some substance and some reasoning for why you're asking it, and kind of indirectly ask what you are trying to ask directly, if that makes any sense. And anybody that does what they did today, which I am all good with, Andy, they absolutely should have done that. Anybody that does that today with Zack, watch what happens. You will see credentials revoked.
yeah,
There's no doubt. So
yeah. I mean, overall, just a terrible press conference. I read a comment and it like summed it up perfectly. It was like a whole lot was said, but I feel like not much was answered. You know what I mean?
no doubt. It's a great way to put it, Andy. Thanks for kicking us off today, brother.
Yeah, of course.
Definitely. Here's the other thing, too, and I want to be fair about this. I want to be fair to Monte. Vivek Ranadive is not the easiest dude to work with. So if you're Monte McNair, I can understand where there could also be frustrations because you are working in a box to a degree. You don't have full autonomy. Now, not every GM has full autonomy, but your better organizations defer to, the owners defer to the basketball experts. Of course, they put their 2 cents in, but they listen, they advise. So I'm not saying this is all on Monte's shoulders. I'm sure if Monte had his way, that softball interview with Mark Jones would have been different. I'm sure probably Monte would have liked to get in front of this. There's probably a big part of Monte's body language, his responses, his energy in this press conference that is frustration that we're here and he's being the one walked out there to deal with it. Wasn't Jason Kidd with Nico Harrison when they traded Luka and did that press conference? Monte got walked out there on his own. So I get both sides of it, but at the end of the day, you just made it worse. Somehow the Kings made it worse. Dirk, I'm going to be coming to you in a second. Dennis, coming to you as well. First, let's go to James. James, welcome in today.
Hey, Rhino. What's going on, man?
What's up, man? How you doing, brother?
Hey, don't look so down.
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm just like, you know what? You're right. We should have expected it. I'm disappointed for this
Right.
fan base. That's what I am. I'm disappointed for this fan base.
Yeah, man. I'm disappointed too. That press conference, I loved the questions from the media though. The accountability that he skated through like he was on skis was it was something to see. Like you mentioned, the press conference with the Mavericks, you can tell like just looking at Jason Kidd, dude was defeated. Like to
Yeah.
be in a situation where you can't really say anything, but obviously he was wearing his feelings on his sleeves because you can see it. Monte was on defense the whole time. And that's what happens when you take too long to address the media. He fumbled the ball with Fox. I mean, if he's the one that's um, taking the blame for everything that's going on, that's what he is. He's a scapegoat. I mean, he's getting
Yeah.
paid all that money to be a scapegoat. So it's kind of hard, just to sit there and take what you know is not your fault, but you get paid to do that. That's got to be pretty rough. And his responses were absolutely defensive. I love James Ham's question. I think I heard Sean Cunningham too. They were putting it to him like, look, and they may know that it's not him. I think he's
Right.
lying. It's not his decision. He's the spokesperson. He's the one that takes the blame. And like I said, that's what he gets paid to do. But the question with uh dealing with having a rim protector, things like that. Come on now. You mentioned Alex Lynn, dude. You know good and well Alex Lynn is not for that.
Yeah.
And he has dropped the ball. Nothing has been done to address the team's issues. Of course, Levine he's a good step in for Fox because of his scoring ability, but rim protection is still going to be your issue. Now if they turn around and get like a Valanciunas or something like that, I'd be perfectly fine with that because that's when they're addressing that issue. But nothing's being done, and that's the most frustrating part. And like you said, we're sitting back with 1 day away, waiting on the trade deadline to happen, and we know through Kings history they will not do anything. It'd be more shocking if they actually did something. And it's even with the pickup with the Levine, he's a great player, but I feel like they were just scrambling. It's like having bad credit, and you go to the car lot, and you're told you can have one or two of these cars, and
Right.
that's it.
That's
It's
a
like
great analogy.
you're not getting what you want. You're settling, and that's exactly what they did. And I'm not trying to say that Levine is a settlement, but it kind of feels like he was. I mean, they're trying to say, well, we got you a scorer. You guys shouldn't have anything to complain about. Like, just be quiet and look at the hard work we've done. But they were backed into a wall, man. And then, like everyone's been saying, Levine couldn't go. No one wanted him. That contract that they had to eat up. I mean, you literally were trying to avoid paying Fox, but yet you brought in a player that you're paying 40 something million dollars a year.
You put the
So
look, okay, so here's you know what? You bring up a good point there because I talked about it. It's the first bad contract that the Kings have had on the books during the Monte McNair quote unquote era. Now, it looks a little bit different because Levine's played so well this year and he
right,
stayed healthy, but you're in the exact same, if not no, exact same, not worse, but
right,
well, maybe a little bit worse because right now you can't really flip Levine, right? If
right,
you wanted to move off of him, you're going to take a big haircut. So you're betting on the upside, the change. You're betting
right,
that his style of play will make this team play better and in turn make his contract more fair and desirable if you ever want to trade him. But how do you improve the team now? You
right,
have very limited resources. You have these 2 trade exceptions that you've got to use. Then if you don't use them, they expire. I believe there's like a year on each of them. So Kings fans, Zach LaVine has to be, and James, Zach LaVine's going to have to be a step above what De'Aaron Fox was for
right,
this to be at least a step forward, if that
right,
makes sense.
right. And I have high hopes, with that happening, but you just never know. Players are an injury away of you can bring a player in and they get hurt the first game that they're that they play. You never know. I pray for players all the time because I don't want to see anybody get hurt, but that's the possibility that can happen. So you're kind of betting. Fox is my favorite player. So it's sad. It's really sad to see him go. I mean, I know teams have to do what they have to do, but we develop these relationships on TV with these players, and they resonate with the team. And he's not a player like Kings fans are. They're known for falling in love with players just because of their personality. But Fox had the personality and he had the skill. And to see
Yep.
him taking that somewhere else, it's kind of heartbreaking a little bit because, we saw this kid drafted and then, I still have Fox jerseys hanging in my closet. It's really a sad thing. And I'm glad the distraction in the locker room you're starting to see that go away a little bit because I can only
Living with
imagine how hard that was, with that looming over everyone. And
Yeah.
they're all friends, and it's like, it's easy to, you know, get upset and angry. I'm anxious to see when they play each other, if this kind of reminds me of when Russell Westbrook and KD were separated by trades and stuff. They kind of got into it on the court, the next time they played against each other. And it's like I would hate to see that, but as a player, you got to do what you got to do. But still, it's heartbreaking, man. I can't even lie. I've been like, even at work and stuff, I'm like, yeah, don't talk to me because my favorite player is gone.
Well, hey, speaking of those Fox jerseys, if you bought one, and this is for everybody watching, if you used your American Express card and you bought that jersey within the last year, you have 90 days to switch it out for
cool.
another jersey. So something to chew on if you guys want to get something different. I don't know if it has to be for a Fox Spurs jersey, which you probably wouldn't like, but who knows? So James, great perspective, man. Keep calling the show. I love when you call.
Will do, man. Take care, Rhino.
All right, be well, James.
All right, bye-bye.
Good job by James there. Look, let me tell you why you're wrong, Tony. Tony, there's a bigger picture here, my man. Okay, are we whining a little bit? Sure. I'll give you that. Okay, did we know what to expect? Sure. But that's where the disappointment lies, number one. That you know what to expect and you're still let down. Think about that. You know it's coming, but then you see it and you're still let down. I get the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. Somewhat feels like the last 2 years since the Beam team. But Tony, this is the point. This is the bigger point about this. Organizations that handle situations poorly, like they handled the Mike Brown firing. Organizations that have a meddling owner who sometimes puts his hand in the pot, stirs it up when he shouldn't, which affects basketball operations. An owner who falls in love with certain guys. There's no doubt about that. Okay? When you have all of those things, Tony, players see that. Coaches see that. Executives see that. And you know what happens? It's already hard to draw those guys to Sacramento. Small market. Playoffs, one time, 17 years. But then they see how it's ran. They see how miserable Monte McNair looks up there. They see the body language. They read between the lines. And you know what that does, Tony? It limits your pool when you go to start over and you go to hire another GM. You go to hire another coach. Cross off some of the top names at the list because they've got options. They don't want to work for an owner like that. They don't want to be miserable like that. If it looks like a clown show, they don't want to be a part of it. So then who does? Your lower tier candidates, your younger candidates that might just be looking for a paycheck. It arguably the crossroads of the next 5 years of basketball here in Sacramento. So that's why it matters. Perception matters. Grant brought up a great point about Domas not making the All-Star team on the coaches' vote. The coaches were not happy that ownership skipped 2 chairs on the bench to go to Doug Christie. They skipped over the associate head coach, Jay Triano. They skipped over Luke Laux. They don't respect this system. They don't. And that's the bigger problem. And you have to do twice as much to get half of the positive recognition when you play in Sacramento and you work in Sacramento. But the second you step in it, everybody's ready to jump on. Everybody. So do you see how this is a snowball? That's what it is. This looks like a freaking snowball that's catching momentum and going downhill, downhill, downhill. That's why it matters, Tony. It's not complaining and being babies. And then on top of that, the fans deserve better. And much like James said, the media brought it today. I give it to the guys that were in that room and asking questions, because I have spoken to some of those guys off the record. I have listened to some of their opinions, because some of those guys I greatly respect. And they did exactly what they said they were going to do, not hold back, which rarely happens in Sacramento. Rarely happens. Grant talks about the media being cupcakes all the damn time. We're going to listen to more of the press conference. First, let's go to Dirk. What's up, Dirk?
Hey, Ryan. I have to agree with Tony on this one, honestly. If this is a snowball, like these emotions you're putting into this, you're pushing that snowball right now, Ryan. Contributing to it. And it might get ratings, but there's 32 GM jobs in this league. No prime GM is looking for the Kings job as anything other than a stepladder to another job. If you believe this was Monte's decision, not speaking to you, Ryan, but just people in general, what GM would keep their job if they decided to fire the head coach who just got a massive extension and a huge raise within the first 20 games? He would be fired in a second. Okay. He's the scapegoat.
Right.
So I don't want to pile on him. I mean, he's having to speak to why was it done in this way if it was your choice. We know this is Vivek Ranadive. Yes. Mike Malone's comments about the firing should have include everyone into it. He said this organization has no balls. He's talking to somebody there, and it's not Monte, right?
Right.
Now, the only even caveat here is Mike Brown was maybe have been refusing to take on players that Monte could give him, right? So I don't know if Monte's having to negotiate his job with Vivek, and he's employing this as a technique to, I don't know what he's trying to do, because it's clearly not resulting in a lot of things. But I'm not going to pile on Monte of anything other than what is he doing at the trade deadline. I think a lot of fans are giving Fox way too many liberties. Like, look at DeMar unfollowed Fox on IG or wherever it was. So what do you think about what message he's trying to send by taking that action when he still follows all of his former teammates? I can't hear you, but
I said I don't look much into social media moves, follows, unfollows. I get it. It's a statement to some people, but it doesn't carry a lot of weight with me. But I get the argument and why you would look at that.
Well, I believe Fox didn't have an intention to extend here. If Monte says it, I mean, that's one thing I take into account here. Fox seems very money motivated. He's done sketchy things like the NFT scam in the past. So he can't win here. It does feel like he's doing what he feels is best for him. Like they brought in guys, and I don't know. He used to be my favorite player, but these kind of situations arise where it's like he had the opportunity to step up and be the leader of this team, and he bowed out. It's not in his character. That's just the way it is. I'm not so certain. We've seen this offense be really productive without De'Aaron Fox, right? So how do we get better? Well, there's potential there that you have a 44% three-point shooter who puts up just as many points as Fox does a game pretty much, that he's going to step in and this offense gets more efficient. You got rid of Herter's bad contract in addition to getting off of Fox's money. So you actually have more money to work with now because you were getting nothing out of Kevin Herter at this point. At what, $17 million a year. So Zack LaVine, and kind of listening in on perspectives of Chicago Bulls, sounds like a guy who has been playing through injuries for a very long time, finally got fully healthy, and he's playing just as much as Fox is these days, right? And he's pretty much performing at an all-star level. So I think this team had already peaked with Fox. You were not going to get any better with him as your point guard. And I'm excited both to see Zach's debut tonight as well as Fox for San Antonio. Because if he comes out and puts up this hugely efficient game, it's going to make me feel like, he's been holding back on this team. Honestly.
No, I hear you. If he's going to the hoop and 12 assists, yeah, I got you.
Anyway, so I just say bring the temperature down would be my request for everyone. Bring the temperature down about why he hasn't spoken to the media. We know why, right? Vivek Ranadive made that decision and he didn't have a way to justify it. Okay. But by all means, let's go at him about this deadline. So when he's saying sounds like a good idea, if he's not making any moves, I think we need to, advocate for his job being someone else's job moving forward. But we got little over 24 hours to see the outcome of this. So
yep, you've got 25 hours and 21 minutes until the deadline. So we will see what he does. Appreciate the perspective, Dirk.
Have a good one.
All right. Good job by Dirk. You're looking at the trade assets right now as the Kings sit, what they can do. They also have 2 trade exceptions. There's been some chatter that they're probably going to hold on to the Herter exception, the 16.8. That would not surprise me. The Kings still have the MLE as well, and the 13.8 exception there. So keep that in mind. Again, the trade deadline just about 24 hours away. Teams are making moves. By the way, a lot of chatter in regards to Kevin Durant. Is he going to be on the move? Could he be on his way back to Golden State? Chris Middleton on his way out of Milwaukee. Kyle Kuzma headed there. So the action is definitely picking up as this deadline nears. Let's go to Dennis. What's up, man?
Yo, Rhino. How's it going?
Good. How you doing, brother?
All right. Just watched that annihilation of Monte. Jeez, poor guy. It felt like giving a bulletproof vest. The thing with Coach Brown, I think a lot of fans understand. He wasn't playing Keon, and we were losing a lot of games. And I remember some of the home games, the fans were like chanting for Keon. Keon, why aren't you playing Keon? Why is Keon getting a DMP for? Like Keon is all energy, all Sacramento brand. And yeah, it just got sticky in that situation. And everybody loves Mike. And I think Monty handled that pressure or press conference pretty well, not giving away a lot of his decision on why or what was the motivation. Obviously, he expressed that we would just want to win. And you could look at it like, yeah, he waited a long time for this team to turn around and come back out on top before he had addressed that reason why, as we went 13 and I think it was 18 or 19 before Mike got fired. And now we're back, to the eighth seed, but it's still.
They're coming for you, Dennis.
Who that?
I can hear him in the
Oh,
background.
yeah,
Did you
they
clear
always
your
come for me.
warrants, bro?
Bro, you know how it is over here. It's live. But yeah, I lost my train of thought about that. You got me there. No, but I mean, getting the LaVine wasn't the worst thing. Like you heard Monte say, like he was sticking to his guns. Like we're gonna get a player we want. We're not gonna settle for 3 mids. You know, and I was really happy with that because you get a star player for a star player. Zach LaVine's having a great season. I feel that him and DeMar's connection will be great. I'm rooting for the trifecta for you. I'm trying to get Kobe White over here.
He was recalled, from Stockton. He had a big game last night in Mexico City.
No, not Kobe Jones, Kobe White.
Oh, Kobe White. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Double. Yeah, I would love to have Kobe White. I just think the price is going to be too steep.
Yeah,
I've wanted him for a minute, but is there somebody out there? Look, I'm not saying the Kings can go get Austin Reeves at the trade deadline, but I'm going to be really interested to see what the Lakers do with Luka, depending on his availability long term, how he's going to be able to stay healthy. Because if the Kings got another guy like an Austin Reeves, a TJ McConnell, and those guys, for all intents and purposes, as of right now, are not on the market, that would go a long way to bolstering the depth at the guard position where you need it. Because right now, Devin Carter's not ready. And then certainly we know the Kings need something more on the forward kind of center front. And I was talking about this with Jerry last year. We've talked about it off the record, off the air a lot this year about how the NBA is kind of swinging back, especially the second half of the seasons. It's the second year now where teams are trying to go double big. And in some ways, Minnesota started that with Gobert and Towns and keeping Naz Reid. And so Dallas did that last year at the deadline. It worked for them. They're going to Anthony Davis now. And I think that would be something that would greatly help the Kings. But again, not a ton of bigs out there. There's some that you could grab. Valanciunas, who knows? I think the value for Valanciunas is going to be way too high. Washington wanted to start with 2 second-round draft picks for him. That was the starting conversation, and that came out like 6 weeks ago. So I bet with the market being so thin that I don't know that the Kings can go grab him. Collins, who knows if that deal could possibly still be on the table. Reportedly, it was vetoed by Mike Brown because he had worries about Collins' basketball IQ. So those are the 2 areas the Kings have to improve. And I just don't see, Dennis, them holding on to these draft picks.
Right. Yeah, definitely need a scorer off the bench, need a big off the bench, and definitely a wing, and like a wing combo, like you were saying, a type player. So for sure, like this roster is still imbalanced, still incomplete. Like he just lost Herter, so I expect him to make another move for sure.
I would hope so. All right, Dennis. Hold
I
on.
gotta go. They're coming in. I gotta go right now.
Yeah, I can hear him knocking on your door, brother.
They're not knocking.
You better get
Later.
rolling, dude. Love messing with Dennis. What a guy. Good guy. Look, I'm sorry for bringing a little bit of heat there. And before Dirk called, I acknowledged Monte is in an impossible position. Just discouraging. That's all it is. It's discouraging. So, yes, is there a path forward? What can the Kings do? Let's talk about these trades really quick, and we're going to get back to the chat as well. Let's talk about the draft assets. You've got a 2027 unprotected first from San Antonio. That arguably is the best asset in terms of trade capital that the Kings have. And if San Antonio continues on the same track that they're headed on, that's going to be a late first round pick in 2027. Should be a late first round pick. I don't know any path forward for the Kings to, and I mean this seriously. Maybe you keep a second here, a second there, but that Charlotte pick that's top 14 protected, Charlotte's going to be near the top of the lottery, meaning that's going to convey into a couple of second round picks. I guess what I'm saying is this team is not going to be able to improve in the short term by using these picks. So for me, there's two options. The two options are this: you're trading picks and you're getting another asset, and you're using a trade exception if the salaries do not match. And maybe you throw a player in there as well, like a Trey Lyles, for instance, or if a team is looking for something very small and expiring. We know those guys: Doug McDermott, Jay Crowder, Alex Len, etc. Or option number two, you do what Utah did and you consolidate the picks. That's the other option. But I feel like one of those two things has to happen before the deadline. If there is not another move before the deadline, we're going to be having some hard conversations. And where do you all stand on that? Let me know in the chat. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What's the outlook for this team with no other move? I can tell you this, as we sit today, it's going to be a lot of minutes like we've seen before for the starters. And Zack LaVine, he's been playing 34.1 minutes a game. That's going to have to go up if the Kings don't make another move. And Devin Carter, and by the way, I did mention Colby Jones. He's been recalled from Stockton. That's not a big surprise. I expected that to happen with the point guard issues. But Devin Carter has got to find a way to get more comfortable. For whatever reason, ever since the first week that he came back and started with the Kings, he's been sped up. Since that Boston game, he's been going too quick. The offense has been rushed. He's been throwing guys grenades, and I'm giving the guy a break. He didn't play Summer League. He was injured. He's worked his way back. He's going to take time to develop. But what I'm saying is I think Devin Carter can play much better while still developing. The defense is the defense. He's making an immediate impact at times on defense. Just let the offense come to you. Don't try to force the offense. We don't need Devin Carter to score 30 points a night. But Devin Carter is now in a position where there's film out. Pressure him if he has the ball. Same thing with Colby Jones. Pressure him if he has the ball. Meaning you're looking at Zack LaVine, you're looking at Monk, and you're looking at Debo as your default point guards. And most of those guys are going to be on the court together. So what are you going to do when guys are off the court? Let's go back to some more of Monte's press conference.
For you to come out and just say, hey, this is what we did. And
No,
on ultimate.
Understand, from where you're coming from. Answered there. We were focused on the team at that point and turning the season around. And, that was at that time, that was what we were focused on.
But in the best interest of the media, get some type of feedback.
Yeah, understand, from where you're coming from. Yeah.
Next question.
Monte, how was Fox consulted at all or talked to, or any of the players talked to at all about the decision to move on from Mike? And do you feel that had a impact on ultimately an agreement not being able to be made or a separation happening between the organization and De'Aaron?
No, De'Aaron had nothing to do with the decision on the coaching change. No player did. That was the decision that I made, that the organization, as we discussed, obviously came to, but no players, no.
So that was Monte confirming that no players were in on the Mike Brown decision.
First winning coach here in quite a long time. And you guys understood have a five game losing streak at the time of the firing. Can you just explain the timing of it, particularly after he was given an extension, and why it seemed like he had such a short leash?
Yeah, obviously we had, I think, high expectations coming into the season, for a variety of reasons. We did start off with some success, but heading into December started hitting a skid. And then I think ultimately, as we're trying to figure out ways to turn the season around, a lot of different things were discussed. But, ultimately the 5-game losing streak at home and the Detroit loss, the next day, as we talk through it, that was, we felt we had a season that could be better. And, that was the choice we made at that time. That was the thing that, that we could push to. And, so far I think we've had some success there, but, those were the main factors that were going in at the time. And, the higher expectations things are, the more we expect of ourselves.
Hi, Monte. On the De'Aaron front, you guys obviously make a choice to do it now versus the summer. I just wonder, from the group standpoint, when did that start to become more real, and what was your calculus on, that idea that do we ride this out and see how the rest of the year goes? Market-wise, what kind of intel and information and insight can you share about, doing it now versus doing it later?
Yeah. I mean, really, I think anytime, a player of that caliber, you get closer to the end of the contract. We've offered extensions, as we talked about. Anytime there's a transaction window, we revisit, how do we handle this? And I think at this point, with a year and a half left, we decided, with the public and private indications we were getting, that this was the time to at least explore the market. At the same time, when I think we got a return we're excited about, and so that's why we pulled the trigger.
Monte, Monte, during media day, I specifically asked you about roster balance, specifically with length. You pointed to McDaniels and Len as two players that provided length. McDaniels, of course, did make it at training camp. Len has had multiple DNPs, isn't getting significant minutes, as you would say. Do you still have a plan to address the length issues that you guys have within this roster imbalance?
Yeah, certainly. Something we're looking to do. Well, we obviously, with the trade deadlines coming up, that's one option, and we'll continue to look at it going forward.
That was brutal. And from that standpoint, that's why for Monte, it's so hard. I said at the beginning too, he's fallen on the sword. He's taken the grenade. We're looking at options. I don't fault him for that answer and the brevity in that answer. That was part of the reason that I questioned yesterday the timing of these press conferences. Obviously, you've got to introduce Zack LaVine. No surprise there. But you knew the other side of it. But what if there's other moves that are looming out there? Does this mean you're not? Because typically what happens is after the trade deadline, you get another press conference. So will there be another one? Monty's not going to talk about discussions that are ongoing, who they're talking to, who they're looking at 24 hours before the deadline. But you should, theoretically, at least in the past years, whether the Kings make a move or not, that press conference happens. So will this press conference suffice for any other moves if they're marginal moves? If the Kings made another trade exception move like they did 2 years ago with Kessler Edwards, they're not going to do a press conference to introduce Kessler Edwards from Brooklyn. But what's that going to look like? I think, there is a lot up in the air for this franchise. And I seriously question Monty's future here in Sacramento. A lot of talk. You go back to the Ramona Shelburne article that came out. That was more or less to take and shift the blame off of De'Aaron Fox and shift the blame off of the players. We don't know exactly who the source was that was in that article, but obviously it was either someone extremely close, if not in the front office, or it was an agent. It was Rich Paul. Could have been a combination of both there. But Monte said, or at least Ramona Shelburne confirmed, that it was Monte that was convening the meetings about Mike Brown's future. And I think the Mike Brown stuff is interesting in this sense. There had been a lot of talks going back to the end of last season. If those two, Monte and Mike, were on the same page together, there was a lot of talks about that. And you wonder with some of these lack of roster moves, I should say, if that's the case. I mean, look at what the summer was. You got Malik Monk back. Great. That's awesome. That was awesome, awesome, awesome. The Kings would be absolutely screwed without Malik Monk right now. You bring in DeMar, but other than that, that was it. I mean, you have two guys on the roster right now that were not in the NBA to start the season, in Doug McDermott and Jay Crowder. Some of the questions out there, can you trade Jay Crowder? Sure, but I believe you can trade him, number one, because his contract is now fully guaranteed. But number two, I don't think there's really any value to trading Jay Crowder. And I credit Jay and I credit Doug McDermott. They've been incredibly professional behind the scenes. They've been very good locker room guys. They've been great with the rookies. You saw Jay talking to the refs last game about a call that he didn't like. So they have been great for what their roles have been and very professional. But that's just not going to cut it. So I guess the interesting thing as we approach this deadline is, are the Kings more or less writing this season off? And when I say writing the season off, I don't mean giving up, but saying the Zack LaVine move, there's nothing really more that we can do that's going to change things enough to do a move. There's just really nothing more. We got to see how the Zack LaVine thing plays out, and it could play out very well. Absolutely could. But that is what I am most interested in now. And if you're just joining us, we're going over the Monte McNair press conference that took place earlier this morning. We are about an hour away from Zack LaVine being introduced to the media. We will have live coverage of that right here on the channel. If you would like to call the show, get up in here, you can click on the link that is circulating in the chat. Also, you can use the QR code. You can call 916-822-9485, 916-822-9485. We can get you on as well. Brother Cy, bottom line, we need more AP space. It's a bonus. Take up too much, especially for only averaging 20 points a game. I don't know if I agree with that. Wizards let Kuzma go. They want draft picks with any players being traded. Well, here's the most interesting thing, and we've been kind of all over this. This CBA has changed everything about what teams are doing and what they're asking for, because in a sense, the Kings hold a decent hand with their draft picks, because draft picks are far more valuable than they have been in past years because of roster construction, because of the aprons of the CBA, because they come with a guaranteed pay scale for the rookies and a length that you have them. And that's where the premium becomes on developing your young talent, which the Kings have been really good at. The program in Stockton has been excellent. Lindsey Harding, G League Coach of the Year last year. Quentin Crawford, reigning Coach of the Month in the G League for the Stockton Kings. Gabriel Harris, GM down there, shaking things up, making some moves with that roster, doing a great job. And one of the things that they do down there, which I feel is a little bit more unique than some of the other teams in the G League, is they don't just roll the ball out and say play. They don't give the ball to the two-way guys or guys that are assigned like Colby Jones and say, go score 50. They run a structured system very similar to what the Kings run. They're using Scal in a sense like a default Sabonis. Now, much different games, but they're using him like a Sabonis, meaning when Colby comes up to the team, when Mason Jones, Isaac comes up, all those guys, they're getting reps. They're getting looks in that same system that will be similar to the looks that they get in the NBA. And yes, they're featured a little bit more, but they also put them in those looks that they will likely see as not the number one, number two, number three options when they get minutes in Sacramento. Keon Ellis, undrafted. Kings did a great job with him, developing him. So I can go on, but there's a lot of value to G League programs right now and the picks. And so can the Kings parlay them? Because I'm very confident in what the Kings can do, not only with second round picks, but also with their scouting and identifying guys that are undrafted. So I would really like to see something happen with these picks. And as we look at what the Athletic has as their trade deadline tracker, let's go to that really quick. They kind of list all of the players that were available or could still be available, and they estimate some values. So we know a lot of these names. This is a name that's intriguing to me. Colin Sexton. Is he worth a first round pick? Contract $17.3 million. A little bit steep. Not too bad, though. Not terrible. Would he be a fit here possibly at backup point guard? I don't know. I like Kobe White a heck of a lot better. He's not going to be available, though. What about like a Larry Nance Jr.? How does that hit with you? An athletic guy, a rim runner, a guy that can play with Domas if you need to. You could slide Keegan to the 3. Second rounders, trade value. Larry Nance has had a lot of success against the Kings. Bobby Portis reportedly possibly available. I can tell you Jerry Reynolds is jumping up and down with his hand up right now because he has wanted Bobby Portis in a Sacramento Kings jersey for a really long time. Contract matching, $12.6 million a year. He expires next year. So there are options out there. And here's the other thing that you got to do if you're this front office. You've got to try to identify guys that might be on the rise, that are on good deals, that you feel like you could further develop. You feel like you have coaches that could work with that player better and improve, coaches that focus in areas that that player might be lacking a little bit, and you could really bring the best out of them. Nick Richardson going to Phoenix, that was an example of an upside or a high upside move for them. Is there anybody like that the Kings are liking? So what names are you all looking at? We know what the Kings need. Can they get it done? That's the big question. We're 24 hours out from the trade deadline. A lot going on today in Sacramento. Zack LaVine about an hour away from being introduced to the media. Todd, all expiring contracts, that valuable in itself. Yes, it definitely is to a degree. And that has been the MO of the Sacramento Kings front office under Monte McNair. Again, they have not had any bad contracts. Zack LaVine is probably the worst contract that they've had. And that contract looks a little bit better with the way that he's been playing. But what I mean by bad contracts is if it's not working out, you're not married to a player to the point where you're going to have to take a significant haircut if you try to get him out of here. You know, Zack LaVine might end up having a ton of value and be worth the amount on his contract. But other than that, Monte has done a decent job. Now, where Monte has lacked has been the fringes. Monte has either hit a home run or he struck out. The last 2 trade deadlines, I feel like, have been the area that you can point to that has set this Kings team and this bench back. You could even go back a little bit to the summer after the Beam team when they extended Sabonis instead of using some of that money towards improving the roster. They ran it back. I don't think there was a big rush. Sabonis's camp had brought it up, but there was no immediate need to extend him. He seemed happy in Sacramento. He's always played in small markets. No indications he was going to go anywhere. But what I'm saying is that is where teams the last couple of years have made that push. Look at the Mavericks. They were behind the Kings last year at the deadline. They make a couple of moves, giving up at most, I believe it was a first-round pick. They get to the finals. The year before that, when the Kings did their trade exception that was expiring to get Kessler Edwards from Brooklyn, the Lakers behind you in the standings, they get D'Lo, they get Hachimura. Wouldn't have cost the Kings a ton. Hachimura would have looked really nice, I think, in a Kings uniform. He's been playing well for the Lakers ever since. That catapulted the Lakers to the Western Conference Finals that year. So that's how you end up where you are now with this bench. This bench doesn't happen overnight. And that's the position the Kings are in. And on top of that, the Kings have, to a degree, had guys that have not really developed to the standard that I think they were hoping for. I think you can clearly say Colby Jones is one of those guys that is not developed. They were high on him. They moved back in the draft, got him in the second round, and got rid of the Rashawn Holmes contract, which was a good move. But Colby really has not developed as quickly as some would like. The situation with Sasha Vezenkov, the Kings put a lot of eggs in that basket that Sasha would be able to come over here and change the team to a degree, a lot of the fan base. And I think that was an overhyped move. I think the team indirectly overhyped that and got the fan base's expectations a little too high. When you're hearing reports about Mike Brown going overseas to watch Sasha play, and now we all know how that worked out, and he's no longer here. So just a lot of things between non-action and non-development that land you where you are now with the Kings. But again, are they going to ride this out? Are they going to ride this out the rest of the season with this team and for Sir 2K9? And guess what? A team that is notorious for drafting and signing guards has put itself in a position to where we still need another point guard. Yeah, and you wonder how much that played in to De'Aaron Fox, right? De'Aaron Fox did not ask for a trade. He didn't. The Kings decided it was time to move on. Now, De'Aaron Fox definitely sent indications that he was reluctant to resign. And whether you agree with the De'Aaron deal and the return that you got for him, De'Aaron and Rich Paul in some ways did the Kings a favor. They could have gaslighted the Kings and said, oh, we definitely want to re-sign. We intend on re-signing. Let's keep shaking this roster up. Let's keep trying to improve. And the Kings could have made moves that might not have been in their best long-term interest to satisfy the short term, and then have De'Aaron Fox walk, or decide this summer or next trade deadline, I'm not re-signing, or have them drop the ball on the Kings then, and the Kings would be screwed. You've traded away pieces that are part of your future that you think, and you're going to be without De'Aaron. Now, the flip side of that is all the guards the Kings drafted. I could understand De'Aaron being a little bit confused by that. You've used a lot of first-round picks on guards while you have had De'Aaron Fox. Bobby Marks, somebody who I greatly respect, NBA front office guy. He's now a front office insider for ESPN. He talked about what he would have liked to see the Kings do with De'Aaron and the trade, how you may have been able to extract more value. Although Bobby said he thinks the Kings got a good deal, here's what Bobby had to say could have also been on the table.
I would have loved to just say, you know what, we're going to leverage the crap out of De'Aaron Fox, and we're going to make San Antonio basically up the ante as far as what we want to do. And I get it. I'm not there, but I went through it in New Jersey with Aaron Williams, and we basically leveraged the hell out of the Knicks to make them basically give everything for Carmelo Anthony. And I would have said also, hey, we're not going to trade you. And if we do, it's going to be in the summer, but this is going to be what our asking point is. And it feels like basically, certainly Sacramento said, you know what, we need to get this resolved and let's do our best to get what we can. And you certainly get Zack LaVine in the 2 first 5 seconds as part of the trade. I get it. I'm not giving grades, but I understand why.
I can't grade the trade. I don't think any of us can grade this trade for another 2 years. At least 2 years. We won't know. We got to see what the picks turn into. You got to see how LaVine develops. And here's the other side of this. Again, the market. Something I talked about, I recorded a podcast on Sunday, and something last week that I had talked about on these live shows was the market and the fact that it was up in the air. Nobody, including those in front offices, really knew what this trade market was going to look like and how it was going to be set. Were you going to have an outlier of a deal? What was the first domino that's going to fall, that's going to indicate, what kind of value is going to be considered for players? What's considered a good deal? What's considered a bad deal? Last year at free agency, we saw a lot of guys not get paid. We saw guys that got much less than we thought, and we saw guys that got shorter contracts. Shorter contracts have been something that have been a little bit of a trend over the last 3-4 years, and I get that. Some of the top guys, faces of the NBA, they have been doing those. LeBron James, to name one of them. I get the upside of that. But the other thing that we saw because of this new CBA was teams trying to get out of the aprons and not be in luxury tax. As of a couple of days ago, this is what the luxury tax, let me take that Kings Court logo down for you. These are the teams that are currently estimated to be in the luxury tax. And this may have changed with trades. This was updated and as of the 2nd. So I don't know about Milwaukee. That might be different. But the going rate to offload salary was giving away a 2nd-round pick, and the Kings did that with the Davion Mitchell deal in Sasha. So because you saw guys not get paid as much, and I think you could even make that argument about Malik Monk. Malik didn't even try the open market. And his agent was putting feelers out before. They were trying to gauge what he might be able to get on the open market. And I think that's a perfect example. So fast forward to this trade deadline, I think that's why there's been so much uncertainty when it comes to whether this seems like a good deal, a bad deal. And I also think the Kings were waiting to have a big shoe drop. And it did, the biggest of all, the trade that shocked the NBA system. The Luka and the AD trade happened first. And within 24 hours, De'Aaron's gone. So in some ways, the Kings might feel like they got ahead of whatever the market's going to be. The flip side of that, the market may demand much more in terms of draft compensation for a player of De'Aaron's stature, who's clearly a 1B. Anybody that thought Fox was a 1A, this tells you he's a 1B. He went to be a 1B. He wanted to be a 1B. It just wasn't going to work. And when basketball is at its best in Sacramento, it's when you have 5 guys that are all a little bit different. They fit really well. They're all really good at what they do. You don't have just one guy. The Kings have never had that guy, that superstar in the history of their time here in Sacramento. It just has not happened. So Will this end up being good? Will it end up being bad? I don't know. Will they continue to look to make a move? I sure hope so. And I do want to disagree on one comment that I just saw. I could not disagree more with that. Let me get this up. Tanner says, we don't need, where was it at? We don't need another point guard. I'm so tired of hearing this sentiment. DeRozan, Sabonis, hell, even Ellis are capable of running the position when Malik Monk is out. Another point guard would create a jam. Tanner, let me tell you why I couldn't disagree any stronger with you. You arguably, the biggest hole on this Kings roster the last 3 years, and even with the Beam team, was them not having a true point guard. Sabonis was your point guard. You were running everything through Sabonis. And even with that roster, that team was built with more finishers than creators. That was a problem. Last year, when teams switched up the way that they were playing Domas on the dribble handoff, things were terrible. Let's just put it that way. Free throws down 21+%. Guys were not getting the same looks. You only had a couple of guys that could create, which was a problem. And here's the biggest problem. Although Sabonis is a very good passer, you are not getting the most out of Domantas Sabonis, and you are not playing to his best strengths if you are using him to facilitate the offense. And that's what the Kings did for 2 years. Look at the difference of what you get out of Domantas Sabonis when you have him running the pick and roll. He was built to run the pick and roll. And that's why the pick and roll with him and Malik had worked so well up until this season. That's why you're like, damn, there's a lot of chemistry with those two guys. And Malik is not a true point guard, but it is the closest thing that the Kings have had to a true point guard. And it's what turned this season around is the Kings saying, you know what, we're going to pull back on the DHOs, and instead we're going to put the gas down on the pick and rolls. So that is why you need a point guard that is an extremely good pick and roll point guard that can put pressure on the defense, that can make an open shot if he needs to. You can't rely solely on Monk to be doing that. And the DeRozan, I don't know about LaVine because we haven't seen him play with Sabonis yet. The DeRozan pick and rolls are not nearly as effective. Those are good changes of pace. When the game's getting a little hectic, when you need a bucket, that's one of those plays. That's one of those wrinkles that you throw in there. But the Kings have lacked a true point guard. In fact, the Kings still do not have a true point guard on this roster. And although Sabonis excelled for the most part, you were not getting the most out of him by using him in the role the Kings were. So if you continue to do that, you're going to have the same problem. So you need a good point guard. Period. End of story. That is what this Malik Monk experiment, handing the keys over to Malik Monk, has showed you. This team needs more creators. And one more reason you need a good point guard, let me add this in, is now Malik Monk is going to be the focus of the game plan when it comes to the guard position. Before, Malik was not the focus. It was De'Aaron Fox. And De'Aaron Fox was never a point guard. He is not good with the pick and roll. That's why when Vassell came out yesterday and said, who's going to stop the Wemby and Fox pick and roll? Fox. It's not his game. He doesn't use the screens. He is more of an ISO scorer. And here's the other thing, Tanner. Who's going to push the pace now? DeMar ain't that guy. You've got Malik who can do it. You need somebody else that is quick and effective with the ball and good in pick and roll situations. Period. End of story. That's what you need. You need a Kobe White style of player. You need a TJ McConnell style of player. You need a Peyton Pritchard style of player. You need one of those guys, a Derek White style. And I know those guys don't grow on trees, and those are the best examples of the type of player that I'm talking about. But you need to go out and find one of those up-and-comers that can do that. Keon cannot do that. That is the hole right now in Keon's game. And I think it's unfair to call it a hole because Keon's still developing. He's not a playmaker. Playmaking comes with time. It's taken Keegan Murray 3 years to start to have a little bit more playmaking that we see here and there. So I disagree. What do you all think? Grant and Jerry are with me on that one. So tell me if you disagree. I respect your opinions. Call into the show. We would love to hear you. The biggest reason why we didn't make the playoffs last year was because Monk was injured. I think there was more to that too. I think Coach Brown put too much autonomy in the players' hands with the offense, far too much. Coach Brown even is on the record before the play-in. He said he barely called plays last year, which was a drastic difference from the year before. And so when he got his contract extension and you get DeMar DeRozan that you're mixing into that formula, you've got to take a little bit of that power back. And with that extension, he dug his heels in. He was going to do things his way, and look at where we ended up. It didn't work out very well. Tanner, appreciate the opinion, Ryan. We will see. Excited nonetheless to see what this team looks like. Adding LaVine, me too. I am super excited about Zack LaVine, and that is a drastic contrast to the beginning of the season. If you've been with this show for any period of time, this summer it was to end the show, go Kings, light the damn beam, stay the hell away from LaVine. That is how almost every show ended. But now that we've seen what this team is kind of better at, actually much better at, it's constant flow, it's pace, it's letting everybody be involved, it's pick and roll. The fact that LaVine has been able to stay on the court this year, I'm more open to it. The fact that LaVine's not on the floor with Fox and DeRozan, I'm more open to it. I kind of compared it this way yesterday. Fox's game was more of like a wooden roller coaster. And go with me here. It's got its ups, its downs. Sometimes it's bumpy. It's super reliable. It always comes through, right? In some ways, that's what he was. You'd have quiet quarters with no rebounds and maybe one assist. And then you also have the clutch player, the inaugural clutch player of the year. In Zack LaVine, you now have this sports car that looks good. It runs perfectly. It runs great. It's smooth as hell. It is the same speed. It runs exactly the same. But if it's just out of alignment a tiny, tiny bit, if one lug nut is loose, everything's thrown off. And that's him staying healthy. So I think he's going to give you more consistency than Fox did throughout a 48-minute game. And what I mean by consistency is he's going to have more of a consistent impact on the game. I think that's important. But also, he is an electric athlete. Zack LaVine is an electric athlete. So I'm excited for him too. Zack LaVine set to make his debut tonight. By the way, we have already heard from Monte McNair today. Next press conference coming up here in about 35 minutes. Zack LaVine set to be introduced by the Sacramento Kings. Take some questions from the media. We will be carrying that live here on the show. I don't want that dude anywhere near this team. And that even goes before what he said yesterday. I don't want him anywhere near this team. Yes, Zack LaVine is expected to play tonight. Yes, he is a very good dunker. McDermott and Crowder for Larry Nance, not happening. Not happening. Golden State was high on LaVine. I've heard back and forth on that. If we make a trade, who do you think should go? Well, there's a difference between who I think should go and who realistically would probably be going. And I think the one piece that's left here that some teams might see as valuable, especially if they are looking for guys that can give some impact, play a little bit on both sides of the ball, and have an expiring contract, it's Trey Lyles for a couple of reasons. I don't think Trey is going to be a part of this team next year. I don't see the Kings re-signing him for a third time. I guess signing him for a third time, re-signing twice. I think Trey at $8 million would be the piece, and then you could match up whatever type of trade exception. Remember, they have two. I would expect them to hold on to the Kevin Huerter trade exception, which is in the neighborhood of $16.8 million. But you also have the 13.8 there waiting for you as well. You can see right there, there's mention of this exception, which could be from an earlier transaction or misinterpretation of the 16.8 million exception. However, if it exists separately, it provides another avenue. That is more of that 13.8 that it's referencing is really the MLE. The Kings still have the MLE available to them. So you could use that to get a pretty decent player, and you've got a lot of those picks. That first round Charlotte pick's going to turn into 2 second-round picks because it is top 14 protected. Baby Cake says Keon is not there yet. Yeah, look, I love where Keon's at. He is doing a great job. Keon is playing so much bigger defensively than he actually is. I was incredibly impressed by what Keon was able to do against Steph Curry this last time around. Some of the defensive plays and the recoveries that he had blew my mind. Now, the other thing that I love about Keon, you got to be a different breed to enjoy it, but he loves defense. And that is just something you cannot teach. He loves defense. So he is on the right track, no doubt. Kings Orlando tonight. Kings 5.5-point favorites. Zack LaVine expected to play for the Kings. Here is what the injuries look like as of right now. Mac McClung, remember him? He's going back in the dunk contest. He's won the dunk contest a couple of times. Suggs, game time decision. Wagner, also, he's out, I believe. Yes, he is out. 5.5 points. ESPN has the Magic, actually. Check this out. ESPN's matchup predictor has the Magic with a 52.8% chance of winning. What? That's different. The Kings are favored 5.5 points. You know why? It's the first game back from a long road trip for the Kings. And one thing of importance for the Kings off this road trip, I know the record on the road trip was under 500, but winning in Minnesota, winning the way that they did in terms of the team effort that we saw offensively, a little bit of adjustment. Doug Christie deserves a ton of credit. And I mean a ton of credit in this sense. Bringing Domantas Sabonis back at the end of the third quarter when Minnesota was about to take the lead, that changed the game. Domas had 4 fouls, and that changed the game for me. I think it changed the game altogether. It kind of put a little stop to that run, or at least put a Band-Aid on it. And then in the middle of the fourth quarter, the Kings ended up getting, and I know this is going to sound weird, there were 7 defensive possessions because Orlando got an Minnesota got an offensive rebound on one of them. The Kings got 8 straight stops in 7 defensive possessions. 8 straight in 7 defensive possessions. That type of energy, that is winning basketball for the Kings. But with this Orlando team coming in, they have only won 1 game in their last 10. They have been injured. dealing with a lot going on doesn't mean that they're not still explosive. When they're healthy, they play extremely good defense. They play very good defense. Their coach is, in fact, you know how Mark Jones always talks about, I was talking to one anonymous coach who said there's a fine jar in the middle of the room anytime you play DeMar DeRozan and you put $100 in it if you take a pump fake. That's Orlando's coach. It was in an article in The Athletic. He does stuff like that. There's a lot of focus on the defense in that side of the ball. This is what Orlando has done the last 10 games, 9-10 games. Not good. A lot of L's. A lot of L's there. Competition a little bit decent. How about Portland, by the way? Portland has been playing really good basketball of late. Here was Doug Christie after last game.
Incredible fight by a group of men that refuse to let them circumstances dictate their reality. And so super proud. Jay, does that answer your question, by the way? Okay, thank you. But all in all, a really good team in Minnesota, and to come in here at the end of a road trip with all that has transpired, I'm just super, super proud of how they presented themselves, how they continue to fight, and most of all, how they stayed together, because those are moments that build and show character, and super proud of them.
I guess two things. I'll start with DeMar. Fox was such a good closer for you. DeMar's obviously built the same way. How confident and comfortable are you putting the ball in his hands in those situations?
Super, super confident. Sometimes it'll be a post. Sometimes it'll be a side pick and roll. Tonight it was in the middle of the floor, trying to find the proper matchup and the switch. And he just has an innate ability to take his time, get a guy where he wants him, and at the right moment, explode and be able to knock down a shot. And a couple of times they were contesting, and he still passed it to guys, and we made plays. So coming down the stretch, we got guys that are not only capable but willing, because not everybody's willing, and they're willing to put themselves on the line. So big time game from DeMar, and Malik is he's a special one. Domas playing with 5 fouls. Keegan's ability to knock down shots. The bench was, and I told them they were great, because in many times the bench, you can scoring a lot of different things, but their energy, their support, their togetherness helped get us over the hump.
Yeah, and speaking of Malik, and then to the earlier question, how comfortable, how confident are you putting the ball in his hands, letting him take over the point guard duties? And then is this just kind of an opportunity for him to continue to show that side of his game that maybe he wasn't able to in years past?
He's had so much growth since I've met him, just period in his life and in his basketball life. Just watching him grow as a young man, I'm super, super proud of him. And then the opportunity presents itself for him to run a ball club. And like I told him, I'm gonna live with some of your mistakes, but learning how to ebb and flow inside of a game and get your teammates involved, but still be aggressive. It's a fine line. And I thought that he did a great job at it tonight. And if he continues to learn in that capacity, his game will continue to grow, which says a lot, because he has so much game. The ability to manipulate the game as far as drawing double teams. They're already blitzing him, getting off the ball.
Playing well indeed, and expect teams to start blitzing him a little bit more. The Kings have had teams spread them out a little bit defensively. So how the Kings are going to attack that's the other side of the ball we've not talked about with Zack LaVine. The defensive side of the ball, I think he fits decently into some of the zone looks the Kings do. I like his athletic ability in terms of trapping here and there. But, the Kings, they're going to give up, unfortunately, because of their roster. Defensively, they're going to give up some bad quarters. But what I was impressed with last game is the fact that they held Minnesota after the first quarter to under 30-point quarters the rest of the way. So hopefully the Kings can do that tonight, get another win. We are awaiting the Zack LaVine introductory press conference. Lakeup is the new Jerry Jones. You think so? You think he meddles as much as Jerry? I mean, that's a pretty high bar to say that he is the new Jerry Jones. I mean, Jerry's kind of out there. He's a horse of a different feather.
I don't have time to have a bad time. It isn't on my schedule.
It isn't on my schedule. Thank goodness for DeRozan. If we are going to trade Fox, Lord knows the roster doesn't have anybody else capable of closing games. I kind of disagree with you there. Now, DeRozan's your best at it, but the Kings have handed the keys over to Malik Monk. What's that say? They have a lot of trust in him. He's going to make some bad plays once in a while, but I would rather the Kings follow Malik Monk's lead, his energy, the way he plays the game, follow Sabonis's lead, his energy, the way he plays the game. Malik and Domas are both much more similar than they are different. And De'Aaron Fox's approach to the game was a lot different than the way that those two approach it. And Keegan Murray here is also the big part of how this whole thing's going to work. I don't think you can let Keegan get lost in the shuffle the way he did prior to the Fox trade. You got to get Keegan involved. Not saying he's going to be a clutch guy, but Keegan's very important to what the Kings do. Obviously defensively, but when Keegan's hitting offensively, it puts a lot of pressure on the defense. And now with Zack LaVine, think about the decisions that teams are going to have to make when Malik and Sabonis are running the pick and roll. You've got DeRozan and LaVine on each side of the pick and roll, and then you've got Keegan who's floating around, who crashes the offensive boards just about as good as anybody on this team, not named Domantas Sabonis. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it all fits together, but I'm optimistic about it. I am optimistic, as it seems like most of you are. Jonathan Isaac, expensive guy, and a guy that also has trouble staying on the court. That's what I kind of worry about with the Jonathan Isaac. And also, I don't think Orlando is quite ready to part with him yet. That's kind of a different situation with how they've handled him. But yeah, he's had some big games against the Kings in the past. Magic ain't winning. I agree. I think the Kings win tonight for sure. Keon does definitely play his own brand of basketball. Todd, the entire NBA was shook. Still are shook by that move. And I kind of maintain what I said yesterday on the move, and I'm not going to go into it. You've heard just about everything from everyone on it, but I don't see any way Dallas could have done that differently. Especially now with the way the players control the narrative. Look at how Rich Paul controlled the narrative here in Sacramento with De'Aaron and his ultimate trade, De'Aaron getting to where he wanted to go. And speaking of that, that's the other thing offensively for the Kings. Zack LaVine is a great slasher. I think you're going to see Zack LaVine cutting to the hoop, and his action off the ball is a lot closer to a Keegan Murray. It's a lot closer to a Keon Ellis, guys that are constantly moving, than it is a De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron would slash here and there, but not consistently. And so that will bring another really good element to this team, I think. And look, they're a game over 500. Both Grant and I thought this team would not go under 500 the rest of the season. We're hoping that we can see that through as the Kings get ready to take on the Magic here tonight. Big day, huge day of programming on the channel. We do have Sean Salisbury and Grant coming up at 3 p.m. to talk NFL football, talk Super Bowl week, talk about the big game. Is everybody, it seems like the big game isn't as big of a deal this year. Maybe it's just me. It seems like people are not into it like they usually are. Maybe it's fatigue from the Chiefs. I believe the Chiefs are 1.5 favorites in that game. The Eagles, do you think Sirianni, they get it done? Join Grant and Sean. They will talk about that at 3 p.m. today. We've also got the pregame show for the Kings and the Magic. We've got halftime with Jerry Reynolds. That'll be a lot of fun. And post-game, taking your calls. The first game of the Zack LaVine era here in Sacramento. Jose, thank you very much for the super chat, my man. Let's get to that really quick as we await Zack LaVine and his introductory press conference here in Sacramento. We will carry that live once it begins. If Fox made it clear to Monte he wasn't going to resign like insinuated, would it be better to trade him in the offseason? We would have gotten more. It's the unknown. Traditionally, yes. Traditionally, that is usually the time. And Jerry Reynolds said this as well when these things really started to heat up. But he thought you could probably get the most value out of De'Aaron around draft time, because then you've had the second half of the season play out. Hear me out here. You've had the second half of the season play out. You've had teams get a bigger sample size of what they had this year. And for some teams, that might take them out of the De'Aaron Fox market. And for others, that might pull them in to the De'Aaron Fox market because things fell apart in the second half. You were exposed in the playoffs. Maybe you're a team that really likes somebody in the draft, and somehow there's a deal that you can work with De'Aaron that gets you higher in the draft to get that player that you want. Traditionally, it's how it works, but we can't go off of how it usually works because we are right smack in the middle of a brand new CBA. This is the first trade deadline under this CBA, and it is really shaken things up. It's shaken up how teams are constructing teams. It's shaking up how, I guess, assets are looked at for better or worse. Usually players are a big target at the trade deadline. That might not be as true at this trade deadline. The draft picks very well could be more valuable. So we might sit here after this trade deadline is played out and say, damn, the Kings made out like bandits with the draft picks that they got. Conversely, we might sit here and be saying the exact opposite. I think we need the next 24 hours to play out, and then we need the rest of the season to play out. And then we will have a much better sample size to know whether it was the right time to get rid of him. I will say this. DeMar DeRozan did a very good interview with Jason Anderson of the Sac B. And DeMar hinted at how bad things were getting over the last month. So how much that played into the Kings getting off Fox sooner rather than later, you don't know. Because I didn't think De'Aaron Fox was going to be a distraction. Now, certainly the looming not wanting, well, I don't want to say not wanting to be in Sacramento, but having a preferred team saying that you expected to get traded before the deadline, that's still going to be over you the rest of the season. There's still going to be questions about that. Will he be distracted? You know, anytime he has a bad game, well, he doesn't care anymore. All of that still would have been there, but I don't think you would have had a Jimmy Butler situation on your hands. I truly don't. Let's go to the phone. My man, Kazzy. What's up, Kazzy?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I just have like 3 quick questions, or
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
The first one's a comment question. So I guess Monte McNair had his press conference this morning about like the firing of Mike Brown. Is that true?
He did? Yes, I'm kidding with you. Yes, he absolutely did.
You got me for a second. Anyways, I didn't see who it was because I literally just woke up like 25 minutes ago.
Oh, must be nice.
Yeah. And I just saw on Twitter that someone said like, "Oh, this Monte McNair press conference is going terrible." Would you say that's valid?
Yeah, it did not go well. There was no circumstance in which this thing was going to go well. I think the wild card was whether or not the media was going to be very direct, because sometimes the Sacramento media isn't, and they were very direct. They did not hold back. Monty did not offer a ton of information. Certainly, he's kind of the fall guy. And overall, it's not a great look for the organization, but yeah, he was not, you could tell it was not the first place he wanted to be today.
So he definitely looked uncomfortable.
Oh, absolutely. Why would you? There's so many different ways. I mean, if let's play out two scenarios. Okay. First scenario is Monte McNair absolutely made all these decisions, and he lobbied Vivek for everything that's happened. And Monte McNair decided not to have a press conference after Mike Brown was fired, and now you're sitting down in front of the media. It's not going to be comfortable. Second scenario, it's all Vivek, and that's the most likely, or a combination of both of them, and you're the one being trotted out there to handle it. You're not going to be comfortable.
So, and the second thing is, now I know you don't know me personally, and you can make of whatever you want of this, but I swear to God, so like when Wemby got drafted back in 23, and then in the first like 20, 30 games, see how he was playing. And then if you remember at that time, the Spurs did not have like a legitimate point guard on their team. And I predicted that I was like, okay, De'Aaron Fox is, only going to be on this Kings roster for 2.5, 3 more years. He's a free agent in 26. I would not be surprised if the Spurs go after De'Aaron Fox. I only made this prediction like in January, February of 24.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a Spur now.
Yeah. Grant, actually, we've had this thing peppered for a minute. In the off season, when we were talking about the future of the Kings, what this roster was going to look like, I flat out came out and said it. So in June, I put a tweet out far before Fox talked to Sam Amick on the record, saying he was not going to re-sign, in part because he wanted to see how the roster developed. And that really kind of was the indication to me that, I don't know that this thing's going to last, especially with the more or less contract, the Monk having a really good year, the makeup of the team, and seeing how the team played last year at the end of the season, even though it was out without Monk. And I said, I think it's time that you turn the keys over to Malik Monk. And I've been kind of showing the analytics since then, saying that, and just actually, as of the Rockets playing the Kings on national TV, a bunch of people came on the postgame show and they're like, Grant, De'Aaron wants to be in Houston. And Grant's like, no, I think it's San Antonio. That's where he wants to be. So we, much like you, we've been all over that. And so, yeah, that's where he wanted to be.
What? I'm just looking, maybe Grant would probably even know more about this. I could ask him later sometime. But do you know how to describe this whole CBA shit? It really seems so confusing.
I could dumb it down for you. So, okay, first off, anybody that can describe the CBA to you,
I'll take my. You can take. I'll get off the air. Then you can
appreciate it. Yeah, thanks, Kazi. Anybody that can describe the CBA to you, they belong in an NBA front office. First off, and most teams have somebody, and not only just somebody that is specializing in the CBA. They are constantly in communication, in communication all the time with the NBA before they make moves. They're bouncing things off of the league to say, does this work with the CBA? So in a nutshell, what this new CBA is designed to do is it's supposed to make it much more difficult for these super teams to be built, where teams can take on 2-3 stars like we've seen in Golden State, Miami, etc. Okay. And the way that it does that is it is now penalizing you in steps. We call them aprons. Okay. If you are over and in the luxury tax to a certain degree, it is taking tangible benefits away from you that are available to other teams that are not. And the most tangible of those benefits is the mid-level exception, which a lot of teams use to fill a good roster spot. It can take away your MLE. It can take away your ability to sign and trade a player. It can take away draft picks. And here's what it also does. It is trying to redistribute the players. The perfect example of this is a Russell Westbrook a couple of years ago. I don't want to use Drew Holiday as one, but like a Russell Westbrook or a James Harden back in the day, where at the trade deadline, a team trades for one of those guys and then immediately cuts them. What usually happens at that point? They run off to a contender and they sign a veteran's minimum. So it is trying to completely take that away. It's trying to make those players go to some of the smaller markets, some of the teams that are not usually having the opportunity to get those guys. And what it's also, we are going to have the press conference live, Tanner. Yes, we will be putting that up here in just a little bit. We will definitely have the audio of the press conference. I'm not sure if we're going to go video yet, but definitely we will have the audio of the Zack LaVine press conference. It's also putting a premium, the CBA, on draft picks, meaning it is more important now to hold on to draft picks, to draft well, and have players in that first 4-year set pay scale that you get when you draft a player in the lottery. So that's it in a nutshell. And the penalties are brutal. Again, you lose draft picks, you lose mid-level exceptions, you lose other things that usually are available to teams that are not over the salary cap. So that's why at the start of the year, before this thing went into effect, I want to say 3 months after this thing went into effect, the GMs did their poll that they do at the start of every season. It was the number one thing they would already change. The thing had been in effect for 3 months. Jason, what's up, Aztec bro? Any indication that there is another trade for Sacramento? Okay, so let's take away Monte's press conference from earlier today. Yes, the Kings are active in discussions. The Kings are looking to still improve this team in the next 24 hours. And I think part of that is why the Kings did the Fox trade when they did, because of that draft capital that they now have on hand. Does that mean we're going to get a deal? No. But they are definitely active out there and looking. If you watched Monte's press conference earlier, you'd be a little discouraged. We're monitoring it. I'm paraphrasing. But it's a weird time to trot him out 24 hours. 24 hours before the trade deadline. Crazy. Please don't get injured, LaVine. Yes, I agree. Johnny, what's up, man? Yes, LaVine, stay at 45% from 3 and get 5 rebounds per game. What about the 4.5 assists? That's going to be nice. That is going to be nice. Why did they fail? Is there a new trade that has happened in the NBA. Let's check. I have not been on the X. I've been giving you all of my attention. The NBA trade deadline. Anything else new right now? So we know about the Kyle Kuzma deal to the Bucks. That is the last thing going. There's talks going on. There's rumors about Kevin Durant possibly being on the move. Is Golden State going to be part of that? Daniel Tice. How about that? Traded to the Thunder. Pelicans dealt Tice to get below the luxury tax. So again, that is why this luxury tax, this CBA, is so important. And I bet there was a pick that was included in that. Yep, right there. So the going rate, so here you go. The New Orleans Pelicans are trading Daniel Tice and draft compensation to Oklahoma City, a team source. Gosh dang it, man. Oklahoma just gets richer and richer. They already have Hartenstein and Holmgren. You need Tice too? I'm not saying that Tice is a game changer, but he's a little bit of a bulldog. He serves a decent role. Unbelievable. The Pelicans make a move to get below the luxury tax, and a 2031 second-round pick will go to Oklahoma City in the deal. So that's the point that I was trying to make. That is the market right now for offloading salary in the NBA. So when we look at the trends under the new CBA, that has been a trend since this summer. It's giving away a second-round pick for a team to take a salary on to get you under the cap. And as of February 2nd, these are the teams. So it's probably been updated now. Obviously, with that deal, that takes New Orleans under and out of the luxury tax. Milwaukee, I'm not sure about. Middleton makes a lot of money. So there's probably implications there. KJ Martin is on his way. Oh, wait, no, he is not on his way. Excuse me on that. Warriors continuing to monitor the Durant situation. That's ongoing. Why the Celtics traded Jaden Springer. That was a very popular name that a lot of people had talked about as well. And we all know about the deal that went down here in Sacktown. You also have a lot more deals coming as the next 24 hours play themselves out. We are just a couple minutes from Zack LaVine being introduced to the media. We will be running the audio right here of that NBA trade deadline coming up. Monte McNair press conference earlier today. We have covered at great length. So a lot going on right now here in Sacktown with the Kings, including Zack LaVine's anticipated debut for the Kings tonight. We've got the live feed running. We're waiting for Monte and Zack LaVine to come up and take the podium. We will get that up to you in just a second once they sit down. It's supposed to be starting any minute right now. Zack LaVine and Monte McNair will be running that audio here in just a couple of minutes as soon as they take the podium. Zooming in, Zack LaVine's number 8 jersey sitting there, right there on the podium, awaiting or sitting there on his chair, waiting for him. Shea playing. Shea's ridiculous. Shea is just unbelievable. The Suns, they're in a difficult position. Their owner, Matt Ishby, he just doesn't know when to stop. He has no idea when to stop. That's the problem with the Suns. He just keeps digging a bigger and bigger hole every single time he tries to change that roster. And Bradley Beal, I mean, how happy is Sacramento that you didn't get Bradley Beal? There were a lot of talks about these 3-team trades, 4-team trades, that Bradley Beal might be included in that. Fox ain't a real 1B. 1B real. 1B is Kyrie, AD, Jaylen Brown. Those are multiple-time All-Stars. Fox is a 2. We'll see. We will see as things play out. Again, Zack LaVine, Monte McNair getting ready to step up to the podium. We will have the live audio of that for you here in just a second. What does that mean? Like financially, doesn't know when to stop? Yeah. He's put them in a very difficult spot. When he took over as the managing partner a couple of years ago, remember he shocked the NBA by trading for Kevin Durant. Then they brought in Bradley Beal. Things weren't working. You can argue whether that has hurt or helped Devin Booker. And the Suns are where they are now. They're just not the one piece the Suns were missing. The one piece the Suns were missing was a really good point guard. And Tyus Jones came in and made things a little bit better, but guys have not been able to stay healthy. Guys have not stayed healthy. And now Bradley Beal coming off the bench. It's just they're paying a lot of money. Phoenix is a ton of money for not a lot of results. And instead of trying to go a different way and maybe break some things up, the Bradley Beal one for them, that was the killer. Bradley Beal was the killer. It was not bringing in Kevin Durant, because you can always still move Kevin Durant. Bradley Beal, no trade clause, massive contract. That was just a panic move. That was an old school move that you would typically see before this new CBA. That's exactly what it was. And now Phoenix is in a very difficult position. We shouldn't stop teams from assembling super teams. We should let them try and trip over themselves when they realize that the individuals don't mesh. Well, the NBA is also looking for a more balanced product. That's the other side of it. The NBA is better when the Sacramento Kings are relevant and playing well. The NBA is just better. Same thing goes for some of the other classic small market teams. Look at Oklahoma City. The NBA is better when Oklahoma City is good. The Heat has point guard problems too. I agree. What was David Stern's reasoning for not allowing super teams to happen? I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know that there was, well, I guess in a way, which trade did he block? He blocked the Chris Paul trade, I believe, from New Orleans. Now, he was in a unique position because I believe the NBA was running New Orleans at that time as they were going through the process to get another owner. I think there's a conversation there that had David Stern still been alive and commissioner of the NBA for that Luka trade, I don't know that Luka trade happens. I could definitely see that Luka trade getting vetoed. If you're just joining us, we are awaiting the start of the Zack LaVine introductory press conference. As soon as him and Monte take the podium, we will bring that audio to you live. So we will react to it, listen to it as it comes up. Once the audio comes up and the press conference starts, by the way, we will be going through. I'll put some slides up of the different statistics, numbers going into tonight, Orlando's numbers, Western Conference. We'll run through some of those slides. We'll put some pictures. In fact, put your comments in the chat as the press conference is going on. We'll get your comments up. While that's happening, I will reserve my thoughts. I'll break in here and there just to remind you of what we are listening to. But waiting Zack LaVine and Monte McNair at the podium right now. They're about 5 minutes late. Monte was, give or take, about 5-6 minutes late for his 9:30. So they should be walking on to the stage at any minute. So thank you for being here. Kings Court, by the way. Don't forget, Kamish is a disaster. Oh my gosh. Adam Silver, he's just a different dude. I feel like Adam Silver has his hands in too many pots right now when it comes to what he's trying to improve. You know, we're working on a little bit here. We're working on a little bit there. Focus on one thing at a time. That's where I'm at with Adam Silver. And with the comments that Dennis Schroeder made yesterday, my goodness, talk about a bad time for comments like that. Awful, disgusting comments.
I want to let it marinate a bit.
Yeah, so Adam Silver's letting it marinate a bit.
I want to let it marinate a bit.
Gotta love Adam Silver. LaVine will make former Fox fans forget Fox, which is a good thing. I don't know if I agree with that. I'm not going to forget De'Aaron Fox. That's not fair to De'Aaron Fox. Why would you forget him? It's just, it's the start of a different era here in town. I'm excited for it. Anybody going to the game tonight, by the way? Anybody going to the game? I agree. I completely agree. We put the numbers up. In fact, let me put those numbers up for you really quick while we await Zack LaVine and Monte McNair. But look at the numbers. It shows you have a group of 5 guys that play extremely well together. Really, really well together. I'm getting those up for you right now. Here you go. Look at this. That's the pairing of DeRozan. Excuse me. Oh, wait. Where is that pairing? No, those are not the pairings we want. That's why we want these 2 pairings. Here we go. Again, we are waiting Monte McNair and Zack LaVine to step up to the podium. DeMar DeRozan, Keon Ellis, Malik Monk, Keegan Murray, and Sabonis. Look at the numbers there. So that is what they've done this season over 100 possessions, that set of 5. And the pluses and the minus are against the Kings' season averages over 100 possessions. So that group that's played 150 minutes together that you are now adding Zack LaVine to, that group is averaging 20.1 more points per 100 possessions than the Kings team average, and averaging almost 19 more points than your starting lineup when it had De'Aaron Fox in it. So there's a lot to be optimistic about, but that's why this team, some may say it is a critical time to try to get another big man, try to get another point guard. Can you flip some of those picks? We're awaiting Zack LaVine and Monte McNair. As soon as they step to the podium, we will bring you the live audio there. But you've got something good. Look at that. And check this out. They're doing it more efficiently. 20.1 more points per 100 possessions, but they're doing it on only 5.1 more shots over 100 possessions than the Kings season average. Think about that. That means they're flowing better together. That also means they're playing defense. That means they're getting better looks. Looks like LaVine and Monte are getting close to coming up to the podium. I'm seeing some heads turn. Are they? All right. They're running a little bit late. Of course, teams running tactfully late for press conferences. But yeah, good numbers there. Good numbers right there. So again, can you get a big in here? That's so important. Can you get a big in here? Can you get another point guard in here? All things that we will know the answer to in literally 24 hours. The trade deadline is less than 24 hours away. 23 hours and 50 minutes from the NBA trade deadline. Here's what the Kings financial picture looks like. If you are wondering about that, that now has Zack LaVine included in it. The Kings have a couple. They've got their mid-level exception. They also have a trade exception that they could use. There are some unconfirmed reports that the Kings may prefer to hold on to the trade exception from Kevin Huerter, but we will see on that. They do have 1 year to use that, by the way. So that needs to be used 1 year from the trade. The mid-level exception still available to the Kings. So can you go out and do something different? What can you do to improve the team? By the way, after we hear from Monte and Zack LaVine, you're more than welcome to call the show if you would like. We'll break it down really quick. And don't forget, as I said, you got Grant and Sean coming up at 3 p.m. If you've not been a part of Grant and Sean Salisbury talking NFL football, talking Super Bowl week, you got to be a part of it. It is always a very, very fun show. So Sean Salisbury, Grant, 3 p.m. today. We will be doing the pregame show, 6:15 tonight, Kings Magic, halftime with Jerry Reynolds at the intermission. Make sure you join us for that. We'll be doing our Kings Roundtable tomorrow after the trade deadline, 4 p.m. The Kings Roundtable. I will be doing a live trade deadline special tomorrow. So, as you know, just like the Fox move, if anything happens before the deadline, we will come on live to break it down and get your reaction, take your phone calls, give you our thoughts. But this is it, y'all. We are less than 24 hours away from the Kings either running it through with Zack LaVine. Here we go. Monte McNair, Zack LaVine taking the podium right now.
Right there, huh? Look pretty good, right? Looks real good. Yeah. That look real nice. See this tonight? Were we wearing black tonight? We wearing blue. Are we black tonight? Purple?
Oh, the purple and black.
I'm about to take this one home for myself, though. I look pretty good, man. I like it. I like it, yeah. Perfect. Lay this down.
Oh. All right. Hello again, everyone. Obviously talked a little bit about Zack this morning, so doesn't need much intro. Multi-time All-Star, incredible athlete, scorer, defender. I think that athleticism jumps off the screen, off the game every time you watch him on both ends. So we're obviously super excited to welcome Zack here, and I know you guys got a bunch of questions for him, so we'll get going.
Zack, Jake Eden from CBS 13. Welcome to Sacramento.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify. You're able to play tonight. You're not sitting out with with the birth of your son or daughter. Am I right on this?
No, my lovely wife actually just had the birth of our third kid, our daughter. And I have a bunch of family here, some of my friends here right now. My wife actually going to try to make it to the game, so she is incredible. But yeah, no, we're really excited. I wanted to play as soon as possible. I remember talking to Monte and the guys. I was like, if I could try to make it to Minnesota, but stuff didn't clear that fast, so I'm here now.
And just for you, what was the initial reaction to being traded here to Sacramento?
I was really excited. I want to thank Chicago. I spent 8 years there. The organization, grew my family there. Grew up as a man there as well. So there's no love loss or bad blood there. It's just you have to understand business, and I've got to know that over my tenure in the career of the NBA. But super excited. I'm back here on the West Coast. I'm 45 minutes from my house in Newport. So, I know a couple guys on the team. Obviously, DeMar couldn't stay away from me for more than 3 months. So it's really fun. I'm just super excited, especially with these last after All-Star break, this push to try to get into the playoffs.
Hey, Zack, Matt George, ABC 10. Congratulations to you and your family. You brought up DeMar. Speaking of which, having someone that you're so familiar with from your time together in Chicago, now joining a new franchise, how much easier does that make that transition, having somebody like that you are so familiar with, that you guys can just pick up a ball and play together?
I think it helps a lot. Obviously, being familiar with people, and at the end of the day, it is just basketball. Coming here and us doing our job, but having guys that you played with or being familiar with always helps. And me and him have had a really good relationship. He's from Chicago even before that, so it's a seamless transition.
Hi, Zack. Christie Rodriguez, NBC Sports California. Welcome to Sacramento.
I don't know if you know, but your hat yesterday, the Raider hat, raised a lot of controversy. Are you a Raiders fan? What's
I'm
the
a
story?
big Raiders fan. I know there's some San Francisco Giants fans and some 49ers fans, but I've been a Raider fan since my dad played with the Seahawks back in the day. Family's from San Bernardino, California, so I've been riding with the Raiders through good and bad. So you guys might see some Raider hats around here from me.
And then just two basketball questions. First, I guess since everyone's being asked this, what was your reaction to the Luka trade? Luka being a Laker now.
I mean, everybody. I think when it went across our timeline, we just didn't really. I thought it was like fake news, but it was. That was a big domino to fall that no one thought it would. But that's the NBA that we live in, and that's the business of basketball that I've learned to know. And I think that just started a little bit of the floodgates going on to this trade deadline coming up on February 6th. So it's gonna be exciting to watch.
And just along those lines, obviously a little bit of a shakeup in the West. It's been a couple of years since you've been here.
Yeah.
But how just excited are you to compete in the West with the best of the best here?
Yeah, I mean, I started my career off here in the West. It's not that I'm not familiar with it. Obviously, you play all the teams in the East, but being out here is a little different. You have to be ready to compete and play each and every night. And I'm excited for it, especially this stage of my career.
Hi, Zach. Michelle Dapper, KCRA. Congrats to your family and welcome to Sacramento. I'm curious, as an NBA veteran, what was your perception of this organization and then Sacramento Kings as a whole, especially the front office?
I mean, you guys should know I signed here about 6 years ago, so I've been a fan for a long time. I thought I was going to be a King, a little bit ago. Obviously, Chicago matched my offer sheet, but I've had a good relationship with a lot of guys that's played here. I understand the culture here, being from the West Coast and watching a lot of games and knowing how incredible the fans are each and every game, not just when you play Golden State or the Lakers, but Tuesday night it's still going to be packed in here and people pull for their team. So I'm really excited to go out here, especially the first game and start building the chemistry, not just with the fans but with the players as well.
Zach, there have been rumors of you coming here a couple of times before to play with De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah.
How do you think filling those shoes? How are you different? What do you bring that's different than De'Aaron, and what should fans expect from you?
I mean, me and De'Aaron are we're close. We're in the same agency as well. We got to talk on the phone and obviously understand a little bit about how the business works, and that's all fine. But I think fans should understand I play extremely hard. Obviously I can put the ball up and I put the ball in the basket, but the more I've gone into my career of trying to be more of a leader, experienced guys, and even with some older dudes on the team like Jay and DeMar, just help leading as well, just through expectations and experiences as well. So I'm really excited and to go out here and show everybody what I do, and continue to keep growing my game and hopefully grow the teams.
Hey, Zach, Sean Cunningham, Fox 40. I'm curious for you when you it seems like this maybe from us, we've expected to trade with you for such a long time, not even necessarily to Sacramento, but just in general. How much has that kind of weighed on your shoulders a little bit? How have you kind of processed that and kind of readied yourself for this moment to take a next step?
Yeah, I think it comes with the territory, especially guys in my position where, you might be in trade. You might, you're the face of a franchise, for a decent amount of time. And you're going to go through trials and tribulations.
It's coming back, y'all.
So I dealt with it fine, and I was more than enough. I was excited for the opportunity. Not a lot of people get opportunities like this to go here and start somewhere fresh where you're wanted, and liked. So I'm excited for that challenge and opportunity.
Hey, Zach, Brendan Nunes, Sacktown Sports. You and Doug both being Washington guys,
Yeah.
just how far back does your history go, and how do you feel about getting a chance to play for him here?
Doug is great. I remember growing up watching Doug. He's one of the first guys to make it out of Seattle. He's like a pioneer from that area, and growing up West Coast, watching him with Sacramento, obviously battling against the Lakers and stuff in the conference finals. The tenacious and the mentality that he brings. I know where he's from and what he's about. So we've had numerous conversations, and then even when I was even playing here, when he was doing TV, radio, or assistant coach, I always come up, say what's up, give him a hug. So it's really cool having him be in that lead seat to help him out as well.
Hey Zach, Deuce Mason, NBC Sports California. Last year, overcoming the adversity, you have the surgery, you're away from the game. How much did you benefit?
You're watching live coverage of the Zack LaVine introductory press conference here in Sacramento. Put your questions in the chat comments. We will get those up right now.
It's taken away from you. You have to appreciate it more. I think when I got hurt, obviously dealing with that in Chicago, and we were going through those ups and downs. Obviously, there's trade rumors. You just take a step back, and then you start reflecting on, like, what can I do better? How can I come back and improve not just myself but the team overall? And I think that's pretty much what it was. And then just getting back to joy of loving and playing again, because I played 25 games with a broken foot. It sucks, but you can't do anything about it. Injuries is part of sports. So when you get that time back, how are you doing? How are you doing manage it?
Zach, how excited are you to light the beam?
Yeah, everybody's talking about lighting the beam, man. So hopefully we get this thing done sooner than later. Hopefully try to light the thing up tonight.
Zach, Mark Haynes, Sacramento Observer.
Yeah, I got you.
Coming into this situation, the Kings are a team that wants to be a win now team, and they're kind of even. It's like a fresh start for them right now with you being on the team.
Yeah.
Do you feel any pressure to come in and make an immediate impact in a positive way?
I don't think it's pressure, but I think that's what is expected of you. Somebody in my position, you come here and you try to, improve the team. That's what I think what these guys brought me here for, and for me personally, I've been to one playoff series. I've spent 8 years in Chicago. I've won a lot of individual accolades, but as a team setting, I'm looking forward to going out here and trying to help these guys and them helping me as well get to that next step. So I'm more than excited for the challenge. I don't think it's more pressure.
Zach, Brandon Benitez, CBS Sacramento. Welcome to Sac. We saw you at shoot around today. Just early impressions on the roster that this team has, and perhaps the ceiling that you guys can reach together. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a fun group. I mean, how long ago did we play you guys? Like 2 weeks ago? Yeah, just 2 weeks ago. Fun group of guys, can really shoot the ball up and down. You don't want to. When I was in Chicago, we were so worried about them taking the ball out and shooting within the first 4 or 5 seconds. So. With me coming in, I think that just adds to the offense, and obviously with the experience as well. I'm excited. You never know what the ceiling can be. We're going to have to work through some stuff just like any team will have to, but we're trying to get it down as fast as possible. But my first initial reactions with the group, a great group of guys. Doug seems like the spirits are super high, and that's something that, even coming from Chicago, it seemed like a really fun and ready group. So it made me really excited.
Hey, Zach, Tyler Texair here with iHeartRadio. How excited are you to play next to such a great all-around player like Domantas Sabonis? And are you in favor for bringing back the Young Hollywood nickname from your college days since you're back in California?
Watching live audio, Zack LaVine being introduced in Sacramento.
That's UCLA. Domantas has been incredible since I've been in the NBA. Probably one of the best floor connectors you could have, and low-key probably the strongest guy in the NBA that we never like to box out. So I'm glad he's on our team. And I'm really excited with different cuts and plays that you can run with him. We'll get our chemistry down soon. On the nickname, I don't know, man. I'll let you guys figure that out.
Zach, you just mentioned it too about playing, lighting the beam, which we hope you do that, here soon. But what's your message to the fans here? Because you know how energetic and loud it gets here, and this whole town is just so passionate about this franchise.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm a passionate player about basketball. I put a lot of hard work into my game, and I don't take this for granted. So every time I step on the floor, I'm not taking for granted the time that they come to watch the game, spending their hard-earned money to come here and watch and cheer on the team. So, I'm gonna be right there with them and do everything I can for the city.
Zach, kind of building off that over your career, you've had a lot of success in this building. On the opposite side, now calling this building home, one, how excited are you to play and call this building home? And two, what is it about this gym that so many shooters seem to just
watching live
I've
coverage
always
of Zack LaVine?
Close to back home. I have friends and family that are close by, so they always came to the game. And, now calling it home, it's going to be really fun for me to have, games like that every day where I get to see my wife, my kids, mom, dad, friends. And I don't know, man, it's a shooter's gym. So, hopefully it stays like that for me. I've always liked shooting here.
Zach, you mentioned, so they talked a little bit about the lack of postseason experience that you have. How much does that kind of, I don't know, eat at you individually? I mean, people can say what they say, but just you as a hooper, just how much does that kind of bother you or just nag at you?
I mean, everybody has to play the cards that they're dealt. The situation that you're in, the team that you play for. I always put my best foot forward and try to do everything I can to help the team win. Now, are you always going to be able to? No. But, for me, in my 11th year now, being in a playoff series, you want to try to compete and challenge yourself to get there. I think that's the more the reason of it's competitiveness. I think that's more than just, wanting to, you want to go out there and compete for championships. You want to go out there and compete and be in big-time games and be in position to do that. And I think that's just the competitiveness that each player has.
Hey, Zach, Chris Peterman with the Sacramento Bee. Just being in your spot, being linked to so many different teams and different rumors, I'm just wondering, what was that like for you the last few weeks mentally, knowing that so many things are up in the air and there are so many different possibilities?
I think earlier in my career, I got traded early on in my career, and it hit me to that side of the game. But, now you just control what you can and let the chips fall where they may be. I was taking my son on a walk when I got the call from Rich. And I was extremely excited. Obviously, like I said, I appreciate everything and my time in Chicago. But, now that I'm here, it's time to take, my career to the next step and continue that along. So I love talking around with V, with Doug, Monte. And like I said, it's always great to be a place where you're wanted. And not everybody has the opportunity to have that. So, I'm very thankful. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, guys.
All right, that will conclude live coverage of the Zack LaVine introductory press conference here in Sacramento. What'd you like? What did you not like? I liked it. Besides 112 references. Are we going to do 112 references? Look, I said Zack LaVine, he's a likable dude. He's smooth. On the court, off the court, he says the right things. He knows how to play the star role. He definitely knows how to play a star role. So he's stepping in to a new situation, a shooter's gym. Find that interesting. A shooter's gym here in Sacramento. Maybe we should open the door. That's why it was built after all. Young Hollywood, sky's the limit with 112 references. Here we go. That's why I love you guys. You all are the freaking best. Even though it has been a marathon of a couple of days here in Sacktown as we lead up to the trade deadline. And Zack LaVine expected to play here tonight in Sacramento. Yeah, Dave, really interesting. He referenced that. He said that he signed here about 6 years ago. He signed an offer sheet with the Kings. The Bulls matched it, as Grant says, within 5 minutes. So interesting stuff there. Put me on the record. I wanted Zack LaVine before this trade even happened. Dennis is on the record there as well. Dave, excited. Here's the thing. So I don't know if a lot of people know this, but when Zack was in Chicago that last year with DeMar DeRozan and Billy Donovan. So, Coach, Zach was not really talking to Billy Donovan. DeMar DeRozan was kind of the conduit. He was the in-between for those two. So that tells you how strong of a relationship DeMar and Zach have. That also tells you how good of a teammate DeMar DeRozan is. DeMar DeRozan looking to do anything he possibly can to make the team better. So full day here on the channel. What a fun day too. We've got a lot left for the rest of the day. We have we got pregame 6:15. Before that, you've got Grant and Sean coming up. Zack LaVine introduced to the media, looking smooth, looking like 112 music videos, according to everybody in the chat. Looking forward to tonight. Kings and the Magic. Appreciate everybody for being here. We have had a very full day between Monte, McNair, and Zach. The tale of two press conferences, two much different press conferences, two completely different tones in the room. Monte looking much more comfortable up there with Zach, back from going to war with other Kings fans during the Kings live press. What was going on, John? You know, JWB. I don't know. John Wilkes Booth, man. What are you, like 200 years old now? JWB?
That's terrible.
Why were you going to war with other Kings fans? Why were you going to war? What about the Saved by the Bell band? Zack Attack? Friends Forever? I think it's pretty safe to say everybody here, if you're a guy, you were probably a Kelly Kapowski guy. No? Anybody a Jesse guy? I think everybody was pretty much Kelly Kapowski. Zack LaVine. Okay. Zack LaVine. What's going to stick, though? Something will eventually stick. And hopefully it is not coming from Mark Jones. I'm so glad that Mark Jones dropped the young Gucci stuff from Devin Carter. Look at how hard he pushed that too. Young Gucci, because he wore Gucci. Lisa Turtle, interesting. All right, everybody's talking about how the Kings betrayed Fox. How did the Kings betray Fox? Get out of here. Grant and Sean, 3:00. They'll be back at 3. All right, go back and watch the rest of today. If you missed any of it, it's been a fun one. We are excited for Zack LaVine. It is a new start for the Kings and a busy 24 hours still ahead of them. If you are just joining the show, the trade deadline right around the corner. Kings still have some assets to work with. We'll go over those real quick. That's what it's looking like for them. Obviously, the rest of the NBA very busy. The Kings also have their mid-level exception. They have a trade exception that's going to be good for 1 year. You're 186. Okay, like it. Hey, do me a favor. Give us a thumbs up if you don't mind. It really helps the channel. If you've tuned in today, would really appreciate it. A like on X, a retweet, and make sure you subscribe because we are bringing you live content all the time here on the Kings. Very accurate content and educated and really good conversations with all of you. And that's a big testament to what each and every one of you bring to this channel. It's really, truly the best and most knowledgeable fan base in the league. And we got Jerry Reynolds tonight, halftime. We've got the post game, Grant and I. Grant and Sean again coming up at 3 p.m. Make sure you are subscribed. But back to the deadline. It's coming. Can the Kings swing a move? Can Monte McNair get creative? Front line, center, point guard, all areas of need for the Kings. Less than 24 hours until that comes up. But that's going to do it for us here today. Thanks for being with us. Don't forget football NFL, Super Bowl, all your questions. Sean Salisbury, absolute expert, ex-USC, ex-NFL quarterback, just all around amazing dude. If you don't know about Sean, go look him up. He is an amazing guy, both on the field, on the radio, on TV, and off the field. He will be joining Grant at 6:15. We are back for the pregame show, halftime with Jerry, and postgame Grant and I wrap up the Kings and the Magic tonight. Zack LaVine expected to be in uniform for the Kings, wearing number 8. Kings 5.5-point favorites tonight. Orlando, winners of 1 of 9 in their last 10. Yes, 1 of 9 in their last 10, most recently losing to Golden State. So they are struggling. We'll keep an eye on their injury report as well. They've got a game time decision there. The Kings, first game back from a long road trip. They head back out on the road after this one. And it should be an electric, fun atmosphere for Zack LaVine's debut. So appreciate each and every one of you. Again, Grant and Sean coming up here in just a little bit. Come back, support them, talk some football, get all your questions in. Y'all are absolutely the best. Enjoyed being with you this afternoon. Make sure that you're also subscribed to the King's Court audio on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, wherever you find your podcasts, you can get it there. You'll get exclusive insider audio for free over there. And should, again, anything happen in between now, Grant and Sean in the pregame show, we will be back in terms of trades or transactions for your Kings. Doug Christie, break us down, Coach.
That's big time shit. Together on 3, y'all. 1, 2, 3. Together.
Go Kings, light the damn beam. Welcome to Sacramento, Mr. LaVine. The Kings win. Zach's lighting it tonight for sure.
Light the beam. Light it.
Court is dismissed.